You were how old when you came to DE, and how long in practice were you?
I was in practice about 19, 20 years when I first came to my first DE. So yeah, I had never, I had heard of DE, but I never knew what it was. And my buddy from chiropractic college, Kent Moore, had been to DE many times, and he knew I'd been struggling in my practice and my life. And he kept saying, dude, you got to go there. You got to come to this DE. You got to come to this DE. These old chiropractors who are what they call straight principal chiropractors, who was not what I was at the time. They'll yell at you, they'll get it in your face. And I was like, okay, that's what I want to go to. And then finally, when whenever you're lost enough and you're struggling, you just reach out for one out of the toilet, you reach up and grab the last hair, right? And I went there, and I was like, man, it was nothing what I expected. It was so much more, so much. It was so awesome.
And I think the beauty of the story is, I mean, you were almost 20 years in practice, and we realize as humans, it's never too late to learn and change and grow. Because your transformation, I mean, I remember seeing you. I mean, you came for years. I mean, you're now one of our biggest speakers at DE, but you started out sitting like halfway in the room, like a quarter of the way up on that left side of the room. Because you're a big boy. Like, you stood out, and you were always, you probably had the biggest head in the room. And I always recognized you. You just kept coming back. And then what happens is you start to get to know people, because there's a lot of people there. Sure. And all of a sudden your growth started happening, which was amazing to hear about, and we could share that. But I think for our listeners, especially the non-chiropractic ones, it'd be kind of cool to go back to, where you grew up, kind of, because I feel like all that has turned you into the man you are today. So, do you have any siblings, and where'd you grow up?
Yeah. I'm the youngest of 6 kids, and both my parents were raised in the Depression, and that really affected them big time. And it's amazing how my mom was raised in the same Depression as my dad, but their interaction and their reaction to that going forward was amazing. How much different it was. But sports, dude. My family life was sports. I mean, we watched sports all the time, and my dad always told the story that I knew how to count 6, 7, 16, or 13, 7, 14, and count sports, football scores before I count to 10. And I don't know if that's true or not, but he's like, man, and I tell you, football was such a big thing. All sports were, but football in particular. I remember I got a Lynn Dawson jersey, and for all those people, he's old guy that played for the Chiefs back in the years when I was a little boy, and I had his helmet and I had his jersey, and I would go out by myself and throw the ball up. When I threw the ball up, I was Lynn Dawson. When I caught it, I was visualizing his main man, Otis Taylor, catching it, and I literally in my mind, I was Lynn Dawson and I was Otis Taylor and I was Jim Lynch. All these guys that played for the Chiefs, I was them. I had transcended from this little boy, Andy Harding, to that person, to that person, to that person. Wow. And it's funny how in life, as I go on, that visualizing has been so instrumental in my life. I mean, it just kept going on and on, because like when, I was the youngest of 6, and we were Catholic. And my oldest sister went to a Catholic high school that was just like dominant in sports. But my parents couldn't afford to send all of us there. So my first 2 went to Ward with the high school, and then the rest of them went to the public school. They just couldn't afford it, So I was the baby. And by the time I got down, I remember going to those games and my brothers getting their ass kicked by this Catholic school. And I was like, man, I want to play for that team. I don't know. All my friends who are in the Catholic school, they want to play for that team. And so I made a deal with my parents. If I raised the money to pay to my freshman year, could I go there? And by then I was, the older kids were gone. So they went ahead and paid me to go. And that was pivotal again, because I visualized playing on that team, man. And then one day it was a big deal, you know what I'm saying? And, and then, getting recruited, I wasn't a highly recruited guy. But when it came between our junior and senior year, my best friend was getting recruited by everybody. And I was kind of like, those smaller schools were looking at me and everything. And anyway, we went to K-State, where I eventually went to school. And I was like, man, it was like a pivotal. I'll never forget I walked in, saw the coaches, met these people, and I was like, I had a vision. I was going to play here. I mean, I literally knew I didn't know how, but I was going to play there, man. And, dude, I was partying like most high school kids. I was just chasing chicks and drinking and smoking, not smoking, but smoking weed, all stuff. And I was waiting for track practice, and me and a buddy got high because it was like, this is stupid, but we got high, and I was sitting in front of a tree and waiting for track practice. And like the week before, we'd been to K-State, and the K-State recruiter said, "Hey, I'm gonna come check on you guys and everything." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever." But in my mind, I was going to go there, right? And I'm sitting there, stoned out of my mind, and I see this bird, and this bird and I had this one moment, man. It was like we were one. And this bird's looking at me, I'm looking at him, and time stood still. I'm sitting there with this bird, and all of a sudden I heard somebody say, "Hey, Andy, is that you?" I said, "Hold on a second." And then the bird flew away, and I looked up. It was the coach from K-State, and here I am stoned out of my mind. I'm thinking, oh, shit, I just ruined my chance and everything. And he didn't catch that I was stoned and everything. But I remember that day, I swore to God, I was not going to get high anymore. I was not going to drink anymore. I was going to totally clean up. I went and bought a membership to YMCA and never lifted weights before that day. And I just totally transitioned my life. And it's like, when you have those pivotal moments and you see a vision, then you're inspired and you better take action. Because a lot of times people have the vision and they don't take the action. And it's freaking a waste. You know what I'm saying? But I had to be in that space at the right time, right place. And then he made me believe that, okay, they are interested in me. He came here. And then I'm like, I'm going to do whatever it takes. And dude, I worked out harder than anybody that summer. I promise you, nobody in the country worked as hard as I did. And I did get a scholarship when I played there.
And that was your junior year of high school when that happened?
That was my the spring of my junior year.
And I mean, knowing you now, and I know to this day you don't drink, you don't party. I mean, we've hung out till wee hours in the morning, and
yeah.
And you're the wildest one in the group. And I'm like, thank God this guy doesn't drink. You're just a fireball. But I mean, what a heck of a moment as a kid to be able to recognize that and to be performing at a level where this, they're D1, right? This D1 school's even considering looking at you, and you hadn't even trained yet.
Yeah, our school was, dude, we were rock solid good. Yeah. Just because we worked out harder, we didn't have any money. The school didn't have any money, so we did just push-ups and ran our asses off and everything. But I'd never done any weightlifting at all.
Wow. So how did your body transform with your training and going into a D1 school? I mean, K-State's, I know you're proud of that freaking school. I really didn't know it existed until I met you. And now it's like I watch videos and holy, what an experience that had to be to stand on that field, man.
Well, again, in full disclosure, when I played, we weren't very good. We did go to one bowl, and it was the first bowl in their history. Now they're pretty good. But I will have to tell you, when I went to K-State, the recruiter was Coach Darnell. He forever changed my life. And he was like, I want you, but you're small. Yeah, I want you, but you're too small to play. We're going to move you to center. I never played center before. He said, I can see you playing center. And he said, you need to gain weight. And dude, I didn't ever weigh over 200 pounds in high school ever. And I remember I worked out. The more I worked out, the more I lose weight. I couldn't. So when I went to K-State, we had this big, long physical, and I put a 2.5 pound weight in my jock strap as I got on the scale to make sure I was over 200 pounds. And dude, we had running backs who were weighing 220, 230 and all that stuff. And they're like, you're going to play center. So they put me on a 10,000 calorie a day diet. I ate 10,000 calories a day for 5 years, and I worked out like a fiend. But then when you're eating 10,000 calories, you just kept getting bigger. So I went from like 198 pounds to the most I weighed was like 260. So,
holy cow, bro! What kind of food were you eating?
Yes, all of it.
Everything.
I remember literally my strength coach who went on. He was a strength coach for the Bears for like 15 years. He would sit and make me. I was his project, and he would sit there and make me eat. And then I would go excuse myself to go to the bathroom and throw up because I couldn't eat anymore. And he had another plate ready. He didn't know I was throwing up, but I was like, man, I can't. But then I stretched my stomach, right? And oh my God, for the last 35 years, I've been trying to contain the beast with me.
What do you weigh now?
About 245, 250, unfortunately.
Yeah. You look leaner than that, bro.
But I work out. I still eat way too much. So.
You train a lot. You train a lot.
Yeah.
But that's awesome, man. What an experience. So did you see a lot of playing time with them?
Yeah, I started 2.5 years. I was a starter 2.5 years. I led it about 4 years.
Kick ass, bro. That's
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
That's not easy to do,
fun.
man. That's not easy to do. That's quite a feat.
Yeah. Again, I was never a big, like 250, 260 pounds in college is not big for a center, right? But I promise you, I outworked anybody. And that was, I to this day, when we get together reunions, everybody was like, man, you were the toughest little guy. We call me the little guy. My best friend in college and roommate, he played for the New York Giants, and he was, like 300 pounds and all that stuff. And I was the runt, but
well, that's the thing. That's the thing I'd like to figure out with you, because I know it's in there. Is it's this like, you're one of the funniest dudes I've met, one of the gentlest dudes I've met, but you had to become a different person when you got on that field.
Dude, you're so right. Anything in life for Andy is preparation. I just mentioned Damian, my roommate, played for the Giants for 5 or 6 years back when Lawrence Taylor and Phil Simms and all those guys. Damian he could just sit there and talk about. He was an electrical engineering student. They'd be sitting talking math equations and run on the field, kick ass, and walk back out and start talking math equations. I would have to, in my mind, even for practice, I'd have to have about a half-hour mental preparation to get myself worked up, get myself in that state, that vibration and state of playing football and playing aggressive and getting after it. And then afterwards, I had to kind of decompress a little bit. And then for games, it was like the whole night before. It was just all in or don't do it at all. And that's been my life about everything. It's either get after it or don't even mess with it.
Now, did you have to create a state of anger and like, I'm going to go crush people? Like, what was that mental state like?
It's funny. I still talk to some of my friends about this. Football, you never really think about it, because you think about getting injured, you're going to get injured. I mean, what you put in your mind, so you have to not let that go there. But realistically, dude, I got hurt my sophomore year in college. I was paralyzed from my neck down for about 40 minutes. That feeling, that fear, that knowledge that is there, that potential is there. I think everybody understands it. But you're so focused on what you have to do. I can't focus on the fear of getting hurt or the fear of getting beat. I have to focus on my job. And it doesn't, like in football, it's an ultimate team game. If I don't do my job, the quarterback and the receivers, doesn't matter what they do. The play's dead because of me, right? So all I can focus on is me. And in life, everything we talk about is present time consciousness, living in the now moment. And what I love about sports is at that time, you can't be thinking about partying. You can't think about a class or anything. It's all in right there. It's in the truest moment. But again, you're so focused on what you're doing, the right technique and everything. And we practice and practice and practice, not till you get it right. You practice it till all you do is get it right. And then in your mind's eye, you sit and visualize it over and over and over. You watch film study. You watch guys doing it right. You see you guys do it wrong. You see what you did wrong, and you replay it in your mind's eye until you've done it so many times, where that way when in the game there's 80,000 people and maybe a couple, how many million people watching, you just go. You just innately go. Then you stop thinking and you just go.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things I'm hearing here, because it's great to hear, and I think this is what people need to learn, is it didn't come easy for you to achieve, a high level of success as a football player. Like, your body wasn't designed for that. You had to go to a next level, which was eating 10,000 calories a day and throwing up in between meals because you just couldn't do it, but you didn't quit. Right. You didn't quit. Right. And then you became the starting center. And to be a center, you got to be one of the smartest dudes on the field, correct? I mean, you're running that line, so you had to think. And it wasn't like you were this animal going out there, you're like, yeah, let's rip people's heads off. You had to get quiet and get prepared to go out there and then become a different person and then defrag from that so you can go back to a normal day. Like, do people realize that? So it's, in life, to become successful, you look at successful people and like, well, I want that. Well, you got to realize, well, what are the steps it takes? And you keep using words like practice, visualize, work. And then the other part that I picked up on is when you were talking about, your friend was talking about going to DE, and he kind of warned you, well, they kind of get in your face, and you said, that's what I want, because you resonate with that part of it where there's, it's constructive criticism, but it's not fluff. There's no BS. They're going to call you out on your stuff and say, well, you better do this, this, and this. Otherwise, you're not going to succeed. And here's the tools you need to visualize, work, practice. And you're going to, the result will be, you'll be a better human being and you'll grow, which is exactly what you've shown.
One thing that you missed about DE is yeah, they'll get in your face, but man, it's with such love and certainty, you know, and that love and certainty, you know, right. I was in practice for 20 years and I was pretty successful and had, you know, a lot of successes and a lot of failures. And, you know, I practice a different way than I do now. And it's insurance based and blah, 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 blah. But these people who saw it's like a coach. It's like people saw in me something that I couldn't see myself, you know, right, and sometimes in life, man, you have to have somebody call you out, or just love you up to where they see the potential in you, you know what I'm saying? And that so most of us we go through our lives and we never even know where we are, dude. And Andy Harding, speaking to Andy Harding, I've worked so hard at being this, and my wife and I, we started this process now to where we do a check-in every morning and we just become vulnerable, just say really what I'm feeling, where I am, and allow myself to get in this vulnerable state. And it's okay to say, man, I'm hurting, or wow, when you said this last night, I felt bad. Not that you did anything wrong, just I felt this way. And once I get connected to my truest essence of who I am, then I know, okay, here's where I am. So it's kind of unrealistic to say I'm gonna have this great day. I just got to heal a little bit today, and that's okay.